Imagine for a moment that everything you've built in your life crumbles in seconds. What if the past returns like a hurricane to remind you of emotional debts you never paid? Santiago Rodriguez had it all. Millions in the bank, a company dominating the Los Angeles market, a Beverly Hills condo that cost more than an entire house in the Midwest, and a fiancé from LA high society. But there's something money can't buy: the forgiveness of a woman you abandoned while she was pregnant. What you're about to hear isn't just the story of a millionaire who reconnected with his past. It's the story of 3 kids who grew up wondering why their dad never came back. It's the story of Carmen, a woman who had to become both father and mother, working double shifts so her kids had something to eat. It's the story of how pride can destroy empires and how true love can rebuild entire lives. Because when Santiago saw those 3 faces, identical to his own, waiting for a lift on a Los Angeles street corner, he knew his perfect life was a lie, and that he'd have to choose between the man he pretended to be and the father he never was. This is a true story that happens every day in Los Angeles, where dreams are built on the mistakes of the past, and where sometimes, just sometimes, it's possible to find redemption in the most unexpected places. Get ready for an emotional roller coaster that will make you question everything you thought you knew about success, fatherhood, and second chances. Santiago Rodriguez stepped out of the corporate tower in Beverly Hills with the bitter taste of another endless meeting. The partners were talking about millions, while he only thought about getting out of there. His driver waited beside the armored Mercedes, as he had every afternoon for 6 years. "To Santa Monica as always," he mumbled, while checking messages on his iPhone. The Wilshire traffic was impossible, but he didn't care. He preferred the silence of the car to the fake smiles in the office. Then he saw her. There was Carmen, standing on the corner by a 99-cents only store, with that tired look he remembered from distant early mornings. Her hair was pulled back quickly, wearing simple clothes and carrying a slightly torn grocery bag. But it wasn't only her. Beside her, 3 children, all 3 identical. The same brown eyes, the same mouth, the same way of tilting their heads when they looked around. Santiago felt his heart freeze. It couldn't be a coincidence. They couldn't resemble him so much without being... "Stop!" he yelled to the driver without thinking. The Mercedes braked hard. Santiago jumped out like crazy, pushing people, searching for her among the Beverly Hills crowd. When he finally found her with his gaze, Carmen was already getting into a grey lift with the 3 children. Their eyes met for an eternal second through the car window. She didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't show surprise. She only looked at him with that coldness he knew so well and mouthed silently, "I knew you'd show up someday." The lift sped off and disappeared into the city chaos. Santiago stood there in the middle of the avenue, feeling his perfect world teetering. The children were exactly the right age, 6 years old, the same time he'd been away from Carmen, the same time he'd been running from the truth. Santiago didn't sleep that night. He paced his Santa Monica penthouse like a caged lion, a glass of Macallan whiskey in his hand, and his head full of questions he didn't dare answer. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw those 3 faces, identical to his own. By 6 in the morning, he was already calling Mateo, his trusted assistant. "I need you to find someone," he said without even a greeting. "Who, boss?" "Carmen Garcia. She lives in Los Angeles. She has 3 6-year-old children. I need everything. Her address, her work, everything. I need everything. Address, work, the kids' school, everything." There was an uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. "Can I ask why?" Santiago peered out the window overlooking the city. Thousands of lights, millions of people, but only one mattered at that moment. "I have to know if those kids are..." "What, sir?" "Mine." Matthew nervously cleared his throat. "Understood. I have the information for you in 3 days, Max." But Santiago couldn't wait 3 days. That same afternoon, he went to his office and opened his personal safe, where he kept important documents. In the back, hidden behind million-dollar contracts, he found a folder he hadn't touched in years. Photos of Carmen. He looked at each one as if they were tarot cards that would reveal the future. Carmen in West Hollywood, Carmen in her old apartment in Koreatown, Carmen laughing with her mouth full of popcorn at the movies. And then he saw it. A photo that chilled him to the bone. Carmen in Griffith Park, wearing a loose blouse, touching her belly with a smile he hadn't understood at the time. The date on the back of the photo confirmed it. 2 weeks before he left for Dallas. 2 weeks before he abandoned her without explanation. The photo trembled in his hands as he understood the truth he had been denying all this time. Carmen was pregnant when he left, and he had been too much of a coward to stay and find out. 2 days later, Santiago had the exact address. A 4-story building in East Los Angeles, with peeling paint, but not abandoned. He parked his Mercedes half a block away, his hands sweating on the wheel. He didn't know whether to knock on the door or wait for her to come out. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as Matthew had told him, Carmen appeared with the 3 children. They were holding hands, walking towards the bus stop. Santiago got out of the car and walked straight towards them. "Carmen." She turned around immediately. The children stopped, looking at him with curiosity. The silence lasted a few eternal seconds. "I knew you'd find me," she said without emotion. "Go to the little store on the corner and wait for me there." The children obeyed, without asking questions. When they were gone, Carmen looked him directly in the eyes. "Are they mine?" Santiago asked bluntly. "Does it matter now?" "It always mattered." "Lie. You left when I needed you most." Santiago took a deep breath. "I didn't know you were pregnant." "Of course you didn't know. You changed your number, your house, your life. You became a ghost. Did you try to contact me?" Carmen let out a bitter laugh. "Did I try? Santiago, I called you for 3 months. I went to your old office 5 times. I sent you letters. I even went to the hospital when they were born, hoping someone would let you know." The world crumbled around him. "Did you really do all that?" "Of course I did. But you were already in Dallas building your empire, right? Too busy to answer calls from your pregnant ex." "Carmen, Their names are Matthew, Diego, and Emilio. They are 6 years old. They like soccer and hate vegetables. Matthew is the leader, Diego is the artist, and Emilio is the one who always gets into trouble." Santiago felt his voice cracking. "Can I meet them?" "Why? To leave again when things get tough?" "I'm not going to leave." Carmen studied him with those eyes that knew him better than anyone. "Do you promise me?" "I promise you." She hesitated for a few seconds that felt like hours. "Tomorrow at 5, in the neighborhood park. If you're a minute late, there's no second chance." Santiago arrived at his penthouse that night with a whirlwind in his head. He had 3 children, 3, and a second chance he didn't deserve but wasn't going to waste. Isabella was waiting for him in the living room, dressed in the Chanel suit she wore for important dinners. He held a glass of wine, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "How was your day, honey?" he asked softly. "Fine, normal," Santiago lied, loosening his tie. "Sure? Because my driver told me something very interesting." Santiago froze. Isabella never started conversations like this unless she knew something. "He said your Mercedes was parked in East Los Angeles this afternoon. That's weird, right? You hate leaving Santa Monica and Beverly Hills." "Isabella. And then I remembered that a few days ago you cancelled the meeting with the Japanese without explanation, and that yesterday you were late for dinner with my parents." Isabella rose from the sofa with the elegance of a serpent. She walked toward him with measured steps. "So I decided to investigate a little." She pulled out her iPad and showed him the screen. Photos of Santiago talking to Carmen on the street. Photos of the 3 children, even a copy of one of their birth certificates. "I have to admit, they look a lot like you," Isabella said with venomous sarcasm. Santiago felt his throat dry. "How long have you known?" "For 3 weeks. Since the first time you went crazy, tearing out of Beverly Hills chasing ghosts." "Why didn't you say anything?" Isabella smiled coldly. Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to see if you were really capable of betraying me for a woman who lives in poverty with 3 bastards. They're my children. I don't care, Isabella yelled, showing her true face for the first time. Choose your empire or that woman and those kids. Isabella, we can talk. There's nothing to talk about. Either you disappear from their lives right now, or tomorrow the entire financial press will know that the great Santiago Rodriguez abandoned a pregnant woman and now wants to play the repentant father. Santiago stared at her. Are you threatening me? I'm saving you. Because if you choose wrong, you won't just lose the company, you'll lose everything. Santiago arrived at the park in East Los Angeles 5 minutes early. He was carrying a bag of typical candies from an Austin candy store and 3 identical soccer balls. He didn't know how to be a father, but he was going to try. Carmen appeared with the 3 children, all wearing Los Angeles America jerseys. When they saw him, Emilio ran straight to him. You're the man from yesterday. Did you bring the candy you promised? Santiago knelt down to his height. I brought cocadas, alegrias, and spicy tamarinds. Do you like them? The 3 nodded excitedly. Carmen watched from afar, arms crossed but not interfering. Do you want to go to Xochimilco? Santiago asked. We can take a trajinera and eat tacos de canasta. Yes, the 3 shouted in unison. In Xochimilco, as they sailed among the flowers and listened to the mariachi band, Santiago discovered personalities he didn't know. Matthew was the protector, always making sure his brothers didn't lean over too far. Diego drew everything he saw in a crumpled notebook. Emilio sang the mariachi songs in a slightly off-key but joyful voice. Why didn't you ever come before? Diego asked, while they ate pressed chicharron tacos. Santiago looked at Carmen, seeking help. She nodded, giving him permission to answer. Because I was a fool. I thought you were better off without me. But we needed you, Matthew said with adult seriousness. I know, son. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Emilio put down his taco and looked directly at him. You're our dad? Silence fell. The mariachi band continued to play, the trajinera continued to move, but for Santiago, the world stopped. Yes, Emilio, I am your dad. Diego smiled. We already knew. Mom showed us photos of you since we were little. Santiago turned to Carmen, surprised. You told them about me. I never lied to them about who you were. I only told them you were building something important and that you'd come back someday. And what did you all think of that? Santiago asked the children. That we hoped it would be soon, Matthew replied, because all our friends have dads. Santiago felt his heart breaking. Well, I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. The war started on a Monday morning. Carmen arrived at the preschool where she worked, as always, but the director intercepted her before she reached the classroom. Carmen, I need to talk to you privately. In the office, the director avoided her gaze. Documents were scattered across the desk, and her face showed discomfort. Is something wrong? Carmen asked. We received a complaint about your work history. It says you falsified documents at your previous job. Carmen felt her blood run cold. What? That was years ago, and it was proven false. The case was closed. They also mentioned that you have unresolved criminal records. That's a lie. I can bring all the documents that prove my innocence. The director sighed. I'm sorry, Carmen, but with the pressure from the parents, we can't allow you to work here while this situation is clarified. What parents? What are you talking about? Someone leaked information to the Mums WhatsApp group. They say you represent a danger to the children. Carmen left with trembling legs. In the parking lot, her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages from unknown numbers, calls from reporters, social media notifications where her photo appeared with false headlines. Teacher with criminal past, worked with children. Single mother hides false background. Scandal at East Los Angeles preschool. That afternoon, when she went to pick up the children from elementary school, the other mother's gazes followed her like daggers. A woman approached directly. "Is it true you were in jail?" "I've never been to jail." "Well, that's not what they're saying on Facebook. You better stay away from our kids." Carmen arrived home devastated. The children were asking why people were looking at them strangely, why they whispered when they passed. She didn't know what to answer. Santiago arrived that night with Chinese food and found Carmen crying in the kitchen while the children watched TV. "What happened?" "Your fiancé kept her threat. They fired me from my job, made up lies about me, and even the parents at the kids' school see me as a criminal." Santiago clenched his fists. "This is going to be fixed." "How?" "Do you know what it's like to be pointed at in the street? To have your own children ask why people say mean things about their mother? Isabella is going to pay for this. It's not just her, Santiago. This is everywhere. On the internet, in the local news, in WhatsApp groups. Do you know how hard it's going to be to get another job?" Santiago hugged her while she cried in anger and helplessness. For the first time, he understood that choosing love meant being willing to lose everything. The summons arrived a week later. Carmen Garcia had to appear in the Los Angeles criminal court for alleged document fraud. The case that had been closed years ago had mysteriously been reopened with new evidence. Santiago hired the best criminal lawyer he could find, Mr. Vargas, a serious man who had won impossible cases, but even he looked worried. "This smells like political revenge," he said, as they reviewed the file. "Someone with a lot of power pulled strings to reopen this case." On the day of the trial, Carmen arrived in a simple navy blue dress, her hair pulled back and her hands trembling. Santiago sat in the front row, ignoring the stares of onlookers and reporters who had infiltrated. "The session is declared open," the judge announced. "The district attorney is accusing Carmen Garcia of forging official documents. The prosecutor presented his case with documents that looked legitimate, but what Santiago knew were fabricated. Then he called the star witness. Luis Garcia, a certified public accountant, testifies that Ms. Garcia asked him to falsify invoices at her previous job. Carmen went pale. She had never seen this man in her life. "Are you sure of your testimony?" the judge asked. "Completely sure, Your Honor. I have the evidence." Santiago jumped up. His lawyer tried to stop him. "Mr. Rodriguez, sit down." But Santiago was already walking to the front. "Your Honor, I request to speak. I have relevant information for this case." The judge looked at him in surprise. "Who are you?" "Santiago Rodriguez, entrepreneur. And I can prove this is all a sham." His lawyer approached, whispering urgently, "Sir, this will destroy your reputation. Isabella is going to leak that you're defending your mistress." Santiago looked at him firmly. "I don't care." He addressed the judge. "Your Honor, that witness is lying. Luis Garcia works for Isabella Ramirez, my ex-fiancée. I have here the pay stubs that prove it." The prosecutor got nervous. "That proves nothing." "Oh, yeah?" Santiago pulled out his phone. "I also have a recording where Ms. Ramirez gives him specific instructions to come here and lie." Carmen looked at him with eyes full of tears, but this time tears of hope. "Also," Santiago continued, "I can bring 12 employees from the company where this supposedly happened, all willing to testify that Carmen Garcia never worked there." The judge called for a recess. In the hallway, Carmen hugged him. "Why did you do that? Now Isabella is going to destroy you. Because I'd rather be a ruined man who can look his children in the eyes than a cowardly millionaire who didn't defend his family." Isabella's revenge was immediate and brutal. Before Santiago returned from the courthouse, she had already called an extraordinary board meeting. By the time he arrived at the office, the main partners were waiting for him in the boardroom with funeral-like expressions. "Santiago, sit down," said Rodrigo Hernandez, the majority shareholder. "What's this about?" Isabella entered the room like a vengeful queen, with a folder full of documents and an icy smile. "It's about the CEO of this company just publicly confessing to being involved with a criminal. Carmen is not a criminal. The media doesn't see it that way. Another partner chimed in. Your statement in court is already on all the news sites. Millionaire defends his mistress accused of fraud. Isabella placed on the table printouts of headlines, screenshots of social media posts, and even memes mocking the situation. Our international clients are already asking uncomfortable questions, Mendoza continued. The Japanese cancelled tomorrow's meeting. This will calm down in a few days, Santiago said. No, it's not going to calm down, Isabella interrupted, because I'm not going to let it. Every day you keep playing the exemplary father, I'm going to leak more information. Photos of you with those kids, videos from that day in Xochimilco, everything. Santiago looked at her with disdain. Were you spying on us? I was protecting you from yourself, but I see you don't want protection. Mendoza cleared his throat. Santiago, the decision is simple. You either completely distance yourself from that woman and her children, or we'll remove you from the company. Santiago looked at each of the men sitting around that table. Men he had considered friends, partners with whom he had built empires, people who had known his story since he was an ambitious young man with no money. Are you seriously giving me an ultimatum? It's for the good of everyone, another partner said. Santiago stood up slowly. You know what? Do it. What? Get me out of the company. I prefer being a poor dad than a soulless millionaire, Santiago said. Isabella stood, furious. You're crazy. Everything you have comes from here. Everything I have is worthless if I can't live with myself. Santiago, think it over, Mendoza pleaded. This is your life. No, my life is 3 kids waiting at home for me to help them with their math homework. He headed for the door, but turned back one last time, and something else. Matthew, Fernando, Carlos, he named his trusted employees. If you want to keep working with me, see you tomorrow at the corner cafe. We're starting something new. You can't take our employees, Isabella yelled. I'm not taking them, they decide. The next day, 8 of his best employees quit to follow him. 6 months later, Santiago lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in West Hollywood. The walls had cracks and the refrigerator was noisy, but there was something his Santa Monica penthouse lacked, the laughter of children running down the hall. He woke at 6 to make quesadillas with Oaxaca cheese and take the kids to school in his 2010 Honda Civic. He no longer had a driver, but he had 3 co-pilots who sang Manu Chao songs on the way to school. Dad, do you miss your money? Emilio asked one afternoon while they did math homework at the kitchen table. No, son, I missed you guys. But before you had nice cars and expensive clothes, Diego insisted. And what good was it if I was alone? Carmen came home from work at a local taqueria. She'd already found a new job after the scandal cleared up. She looked tired, but content. How was school? She asked, taking off her apron. Dad helped us with fractions, Mateo exclaimed excitedly. And he didn't get frustrated, Carmen joked. Only a little when Emilio said 3/4 was the same as 4/3, Santiago laughed. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Santiago and Carmen sat on the small balcony overlooking the park. He had a Corona, she a chamomile tea. Are you really happy like this? Carmen asked. Santiago looked toward the window where the silhouettes of his sleeping children were visible. Carmen, I had all the money in the world, and I never slept as peacefully as I do now. What if another big business opportunity comes along? I already have the most important business of my life, being a full-time dad. Carmen smiled and rested her head on Santiago's shoulder. The kids asked if we're going to get married. And what did you tell them? That you first have to ask me properly with a mariachi band and everything. Santiago chuckled. A mariachi band in West Hollywood? It's the least you deserve after everything we've been through. Then tomorrow I'll look for a mariachi band. Seriously? Seriously. It's time to do things right. That night, Santiago fell asleep, thinking he'd taken 35 years to understand that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in goodnight hugs and morning kisses. A year later, when life seemed finally stable, a certified letter arrived that would change everything again. Santiago received it one Saturday morning while they were having chilaquiles at the West Hollywood Farmers Market. "What does it say?" Carmen asked, seeing his confused face. "It's from a lawyer in San Antonio. It says I have to go to an urgent appointment about a family matter." "Family? Did your dad leave something pending?" "I don't know. My dad died years ago and never owned any property." The following Monday, Santiago traveled to San Antonio with more curiosity than hope. At the law firm, an elegant woman with a thick folder greeted him. "Mr. Rodriguez, I called you because I have someone here who wants to meet you." A young woman entered through the door, holding a child's hand. The kid was about 7, and when Santiago saw him, he almost fell out of his chair. It was like looking in a mirror again. "Mr. Rodriguez?" a nervous woman asked. "I'm Patricia. This is Sebastian. He's your son too." Santiago was speechless. The boy looked at him with those same brown eyes he knew so well. "How many more are there?" was the first thing he managed to say. "Just him," Patricia replied. "We were together one night 8 years ago. You were in San Antonio on business." "Why now?" "Because I just inherited a factory from my grandfather and needed to settle some paperwork. Sebastian kept asking about his dad, and I decided to look for you." The lawyer interrupted. "There's something else, Mr. Rodriguez. Your biological father, who you believe to be dead, was actually Patricia's grandfather's brother. Your distant family, and there's a considerable inheritance." Santiago felt the world spinning. Inheritance? $3 million and a textile company in San Antonio. Sebastian shyly approached. "You're really my dad." Santiago knelt and looked him in the eyes. "Yes, champ. Would you like to meet your siblings?" "I have siblings? 3. And a mom who's going to love you very much." That afternoon, Santiago called Carmen from San Antonio. "Carmen? I have some good and weird news." "What happened?" "We have a 4th child. His name is Sebastian, and it seems we're millionaires again." There was silence on the other end. "Really? Really? You think we'll have room for one more?" "Santiago Rodriguez, there's always room for family." 2 weeks later, in their West Hollywood apartment, which now felt small but full of love, 5 people were eating tacos al pastor while planning to move to a bigger house, but in the same neighborhood. Because they'd learned that home isn't a luxurious place, but where the people you love are.